Hey, how's it going? This is Aiden. Thanks for clicking on this video. I'm hoping to just make the sound and feel as natural as possible. I hope it just sort of feels like you're hanging out in the room with me. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about something that's called tortured artist syndrome, or at least that's what I'm coining it as. So what's tortured? What is tortured artist syndrome? Well, tortured artist syndrome comes from the foundational belief that an artist must suffer for their art. I am a tortured artist in recovery, so that's why I feel like I can talk about this. There is this sort of, I think, belief that stems from prior music, prior artists, just people in the past who, a lot of the foundational figures of modern music, guys like Kurt Cobain or people like Amy Winehouse, or there's Vincent Van Gogh, there's a lot of these really popular artists who really suffered for their art, and they've made some incredible beautiful music from it and other arts as well. But do we really need to suffer that much for our music? Do we really need to suffer that much for our art? That's what I'm hoping to explore just a little bit here. Art comes from a space of emotion. Emotion is just simply energy in motion, right? So when we're putting energy in motion, yes, suffering is such a powerful and also painful experience that can be translated into beautiful art. And the reason why I think that's become so popular is because most people are suffering, which is unfortunate, of course, but I think it's just the truth is that most people nowadays are suffering. So when you have an artist who's suffering, they will make art about their suffering, and people will relate to that art about suffering. But nobody at the core, the basis, nobody at the foundation of this art and of this connection is making something that's really about hope or about love. It is this cyclical pattern that we are sort of stuck in of tortured artists creating more tortured artists, because tortured artists are the things that end up becoming heard and listened to. The tortured artist is made popular because everyone else is also tortured. So people will just continue to relate to this tortured music and art. Like, do you understand where the cycle is here? So my hope is that in naming the cycle that we can also break the cycle. For me, I got tired of being really tortured. I got tired of suffering every day. I got tired of suffering for my art. I would put myself through 10 hours of practice because I thought that's what I needed to do to make art. I was depressed and I wore my depression on my heart like a badge. I was like, heck yeah, I'm depressed. That means I get to make amazing art and everybody else just needs to shut up. And if you don't understand it, that's because you're not suffering as much as me. So yeah, you obviously just don't get it. That's there's this really strange, interesting mentality that comes with the suffering artist. There's this idea that people don't understand the suffering artist and thus they feel isolated and alone. It's either the suffering artist basically ends up becoming really big for their suffering art because people resonate with it and they did a good job of capturing it. Or maybe they're just sort of not of the time in that sort of a way, and then they end up just fading away, dying, suicide, any of these other sort of things, overdose, whatever, An unfortunate ending to a tragic story. Yeah, I just didn't want to see myself going that way. I reached a point where I was so tired myself of being a suffering artist that I was like, all right, if art is energy in motion, then there has to be a better way to do this. There has to be a better way to make art than just suffering. And so, joy, love, happiness, inspired creativity. There's so many different ways to make art that aren't just sadness, depression, anger. And I'm not saying that there isn't space for those things. Sadness, depression, anger, these painful emotions, they need to be transmuted into art. It is that feeling of expressing something and then getting it heard and getting it seen that creates such a cathartic experience for the creator of it. And that is so important to our grieving process as a people, as a humanity tribe, is that ability to relate with what we've been through with one another and to say, oh man, yeah, that really sucked and that really hurt. But hey, us together, we're ready to move on. We're grateful for what we experienced, the pain that we were brought, but we're also excited for the future of the opportunities that we're going to have. That, to me at least, is what that pain, it needs to go somewhere. Most of the time nowadays, suffering in art, it's just like we're making the suffering art, but it's not going anywhere. It just becomes more and more suffering. And the suffering just spirals until the person who's making the art ends up where they end up. That's the suffering artist syndrome. That's the tortured artist syndrome. And it doesn't necessarily seem like it's getting that much better, but I'm hopeful that it can. And that's where I'm hoping to step in here, is to say, my name's Aiden, and I'm in recovery from being a tortured artist, and I hope to help others do the same, to find their way through the darkness of their expression and find a more joyful way of bringing themselves into the world. Because in reality, being a tortured artist, you're not just suffering in your art, you're suffering in your life. And that is hard. And I get it, because I've been there. So if I can help people out of being tortured, suffering artists, then I'll feel pretty good about what I'm doing. So thanks so much for tuning in. My name's Aiden. This is Studio Raphael. We are creating safe spaces for the exploration of self-expression to help you really process these things, to get them out there, and to have people to share them with. It is really this humanity, I can't think of the word, it's this like real grieving process that we're going through of old selves and an old way of being in order to create a world in which we are so much more loving, so much more kind. We're not perfect, but we're just doing better. So if you like this video, leave a like. If you got something to add to the conversation, leave a comment down below. And if you're in this journey with me, subscribe. So thanks again, and hopefully I'll see you around the studio sometime once I actually figure out where the studio is going to be and how it's going to look and what it's going to be like. But for now, we're just going to keep bringing it together. So thanks. All the best.